And it's the comparison between the present and the required structure and numbers that would, to a great extent, determine where the redundancies could arise.
Yeah, I was involved.
In your experience, Frank,
Yeah, I was involved a year or two ago with exactly that scenario, a manufacturing environment whereby they were faced with that scenario. They had to have reductions. And they basically set out, in consultation with the staff, I have to say, they set up a structure whereby they involve the staff, and the staff know quicker and better than anybody, where reductions may be or where the fat is in the system. And they basically decided that let's put up a model of where we want to be going forward, and reconfigure the business. And what fell out of that, wherever the jobs fell out of that, they were in the frame to be made redundant. And once you got that sort of pool, if you like, of potential jobs to be made redundant, then they moved on into discussions in relation to, is it going to be voluntary, is it going to be compulsory, how are we going to do it, what's the levels, how are we going to spread it across the board. But the fundamentals were to get a picture of the business as to, from Martin's point, if it's going to be at 2005 levels, or if it's going to be that we're going to change our processes to do it smarter or more efficiently. We need to do that. Once you have that picture and you superimpose it over what you have, it becomes pretty clear where the jobs are going to go.
Are there instincts in relation to where people kind of feel, well, here's the usual, like whether it's the admin, maybe the sales or whatever? What?
I think that the real key, Peter, this is getting people around the table talking openly about their own areas. So senior managers have to be involved in this. Frank said the staff, but before you come out with the plan, the senior management have to have been involved in it in a very candid way, and the people can't be defensive about their own patch.
Come on, Martin. I mean, if you're the guy that's actually in charge of a particular sales force, and that area is not going particularly well, I mean, you're not going to volunteer. Look, why not kind of eliminate me and my team?
Absolutely. You may not decide. You may not volunteer yourself.
Yeah.
But somebody may volunteer you.
That may be decided for you.
But you have to. If you can't get that candor around the table, either there's an issue for the person at the top to take a view as to, well, either they're with me or they're not. And just in that, I think there are a couple of key learnings that have, in my experience, have to be borne in mind. One is, and this is a very grey area, how deep is too deep?
Yeah.
Right? How far do you go?
Yeah.
Because the one thing from the point of view of a management team is you don't want to be seen to come back to this in the short term.
Yes.
If you come back to this in the short term, people lose faith in you.
Yes.
They lose faith in your judgment and your decision making. I think that can be very problematic.
So if you're going to err in this at all, take a divot.
Yeah. And the other thing, back to your point about, am I going to offer up my things because my salespeople aren't performing well? Yeah. One of the things you have to get clarity on as a top team, as you come down into your own organisation, is that even if you disagree with what we're saying, you commit to it. Right. And if you can't get people making that conscious decision, well then they're actually volunteering themselves.
Right.
And I think we've said earlier on in some of our earlier sessions that the stats say that a number of change management programs failed, and that can be a reason why they failed. Right. Which is a lack of commitment and leadership at the top, and that would create buy-in for what needs to be done.
And I don't have any examples, lads, of where we're looking at how you decide in what areas go. In terms of a resistance to take out the sales, particularly at management level. Yeah. Examples of where that actually happened.
Dependent on the nature of the organisation. We have seen, you might remember, we did some years ago an exercise in a major outfit whereby, even though there was senior management buy-in of a sort of grudging nature, when the changes were negotiated in a union environment, if the frontline supervisors, the frontline managers, if you didn't get their buy-in, none of the changes that were agreed at the table were going to get implemented, and you were going to be back where Martin said, in a couple of years' time, but nothing changed.
Yes.
Having offloaded people, cost yourself a lot of money and not achieved what you wanted to achieve. Okay. So fundamentally, if you don't get your buy-in at senior management level initially, but then through the organisation, your change structure probably isn't going to work. Okay. But then having said that, once you've got your structure in place, it's fundamental to get the staff on board.
But your question really, Peter, is how do you identify, if you've got 27 people in the department today, how many do you need post this change? Yes. Okay, that's where, as Frank mentioned earlier, this issue around efficiencies, process improvements. You've got to use this opportunity to say, are we doing things as efficiently as possible? Right. And if not, you have to challenge that. But if you're in a place where you're planning and saying, okay, 27 today, say in back office administration, if we do X, Y, or Z, or drop some things that we're doing that we shouldn't be doing, we could get down to 22. Now, as an executive, you can't make that call. You need the people who are closer to it to be able to inform that discussion. But what you've got to then do is drive the change through in terms of reorganisation, the redesign of work, maybe some systems work and so on.
Yeah.
And all these things have to be integrated to get you from 27 to 22 or whatever the magic number is.
And that integration is part of the plan. People, I suspect, as we've seen it, are doing this kind of in a piecemeal way. They kind of find these things out as they're going along. Yeah. Let's get rid of so many people, not figuring out the consequences of what's going to be there in the end. Okay, can I just move on that, because if we're doing, then it comes on then at that stage to say, okay, we're going to get these in so many in this area. We're going to get so many in this case here, so many out of sales, so many out of admin, so many out of the support staff, and so many out of management. We have agreed how many there are going to be.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of who and the criteria that we use, very quickly going through that, how are we going to figure that one out?
Well, could we just step back from that, just to keep taking the sequence? There has to be a consultation process with staff. So, given that it's half unionised and half non-unionised, you have to plan your consultation process. It means you have to arrange for representatives to be put in place for people who are non-unionised.
Yes.
So, okay, so you have to facilitate elections for that.
Yeah.
So you go from your strategic review, you have your elections, you have your union, and you have your reps for your non-union people.
But in practice, the decisions are taken before it gets as far as there. There's going to be so many going, we know where they're going to be. Management knows where they're going to be. Then they have the consultation. Is that right?
They don't, no.
No, that is not right.
Management don't know. The reality of life is management don't know. They may have an idea, but they may be wrong. They may have got it all completely back-ended. You're better off, even for the point Mick makes, to involve the staff earlier. The people who know the business, who are doing it, involve them in designing the change, because by involving them in designing the change, one, you're getting their buy-in, and two, you're initiating the consultation process.
Okay.
So it's not a surprise.
Can I just do two things? In moving this, you have the consultation process. There's two contexts for that. There's a context of doing that in a unionised environment and a context of non-unionised environment. Our company here, AlphaBeta, has 50-50. Half in the context of unionised and half not. Quickly, just getting to the point, what's the difference between the two and how do you approach the two? If you were approaching the non-unionised one, what would you be doing? And you're approaching, for instance, the unionised one. So let's look at the non-unionised. What would you be doing?
You'll be electing representatives. Your message to those representatives will be essentially the same as you're saying to your union people. The strategic...
It's just that they're not organised. Because
they
don't have union.
You have to facilitate elections.
They are organised, that's the point. They're maybe not unionised, but they're organised.
Yeah.
You have to organise them.
But the company organises them.
That's right.
That's the point, yeah. The company organises them so there is a representative body there.
Yeah, we organise elections.
Yes.
I mean, a case I was involved in recently where you see the areas of the business that are most affected, and you organise representatives for different functional areas, because the message for one group may be different to the message from another group.
Okay.
So your message could determine the number of reps and the type of reps you would have.
So therefore you are dealing with a representative body here, and then you treat it exactly the same as with the union.
Yes.
So with the union,
exactly the same process.
Yeah.
The only difference is that they're already established in a representative sense.
Yes.
So the message, as Mick says, is the same. Different areas are affected differently. The trade union, through local shop stewards, will represent those areas accordingly.
Okay.
So there is no substantial difference.
And when you're doing then your consultation, do you bring them all together to the consultation, or do you say, I'll deal with you guys in this room and the union guys in this room?
I'm going to be radical and say yes.
Put them together?
Yeah, I've been
involved. Is that a wish, Frank, or is it
I've been involved in two different scenarios. One where it was all done separately, and one was looking at the other. And everybody was, but I mean, management thought they were talking to two separate people, but the real negotiations are going on out behind closed doors between the union guys and the non-union guys. So my experience now tells me, if we've moved on in terms of human resource management, it's up to human resource management to be proactive and to be in charge of what they're doing in terms of communication and the process and talking to their staff. It should be irrelevant whether they're unionised or not in terms of doing this bit of the work.
Still your employees.
And they're still all your employees. You still should communicate with them. They still should be involved in the process. Yes, when you've got to the stage whereby the fundamentals are agreed and this is what's going to have to happen, certainly you have to talk to their union representatives in terms of the terms and conditions of the package and all those bits. But very often we in management, I shouldn't say we, but managers confuse the process of consulting and talking with the negotiating process, which is but a part of the overall process of involving the staff, getting the buy-in, agreeing the changes, and then talking about, for those who are going to